introduction, and a very good morning to all of you. It is indeed a pleasure for me being able to come here and deliver a talk at this Indo-US Advanced School on Nanotechnology. I am thankful to the conference organizer for giving me this opportunity. And regarding my talk, let me tell you that I intend to navigate a slightly different path from the theme of this advanced school. Actually, I intend to navigate a path for which the destination is known, but the route to that destination is still very unclear. It is very foggy, like Agra early morning. Yes, I am talking about machine intelligence, and that is the machine intelligence thing. But ultimately, whatever route is chosen as the final route for reaching the destination called machine intelligence, one thing is clear, that we will have to pass through the nanotechnology. It cannot be avoided. So let us start with machine intelligence, or let us take off with machine intelligence, and then before making, hopefully, the safe landing, we will touch nanotechnology, okay, for a brief period. So now, now you please fasten your seatbelts. So let us start our journey. Now, why machine intelligence? Why is it needed? That we have seen that early robots, which are purely mechanical devices, which were simply pick-and-place devices. And with the advancement of the computer technology and the various software and hardware things, that robots became more sophisticated, but only for performing some repetitive tasks, like welding, spray paintings, etc. Okay? These are simply pre-programmed tasks, because we know that they simply execute the software, the source code as is written in the software. But if anything unforeseen events happen, then it cannot handle those situations, because if that is not written within the software. So in order to handle those situations, the need of sensory perception and artificial intelligence. Now, what is machine intelligence? Actually, it's a very tough question. It is very difficult to answer what is meant by machine intelligence. Okay? But one thing that we can tell, that here the definition, that an aspect of a machine intelligence that we would call intelligence if done by us. Okay, that intelligence if done by the human beings. Okay, so that is the things, that the main areas of these are machine learning. I will concentrate on these mainly, that is the machine learning, knowledge-based systems, machine vision, and voice recognition. So far as this machine vision is concerned, that I won't touch machine vision and this voice recognition, that is beyond the scope of today's lecture. Machine vision is the information processing task of understanding a scene from its projected images. That means that we can understand this as a pointer. Okay, but if we want to make the robot understand and this as a pointer and grip it and drop it to us, then it requires machine vision, which is also known as computer vision. And voice recognition is also that it is regarding the speech recognition, that is the thing, but it is very tough to define with machine intelligence, okay, that in the MIR lab, that, okay, that is the machine intelligence research labs framework, that they define machine intelligence as building adaptive intelligence. That means to adapt to situations, to adapt to circumstances, okay. So that is in the MIR lab means the machine intelligence research labs. Now, as I told you that one of the main constituent areas of the machine intelligence is machine learning. What is machine learning? Okay, that is that various definition exists, but I follow, this is my definition, that a computer program is said to learn from experience E with respect for some class of task T and performance measure P if its performance for that class of task T, okay, as measured by P improves with experience E. Okay, so that means learning means improvement with every, that means that it means that learning means experience after every iteration. After every step, there is some improvement. If that does take place, then we can say that the machine learning. Why? This is important because we, the human beings, are learning from our early childhood. Our life revolves around learning. When a child that it first tries to turn over, then it tries to crawl, then it tries to stand up, then it tries to walk, nobody guides him or her. Okay, that all of us had passed that phase. So in order to make the computer sense that we need some sort of learning mechanism. Now, why learning? This is that why learning for computers. Okay, that these are some reasons, that 5 reasons. The first one is that some tasks cannot be defined well except by example. What is meant by this? Example. That some tasks means that you people are the engineering, okay, either engineer or engineering students. But for some tasks, say, if any electrical disturbance takes place at our household premises, then even a very efficient electrical engineering teacher, he or she may not handle that case. We have to call the electrician. And that electrician has no prior background about the electrical technology book of Theresa or anything. He has never learned that. Okay? But he learned those things by examples. So also for the machines, that it should learn by examples. Okay? And hence the learning. Then the next thing is that working environments of the machine may not be known at the design time. If we want to develop a robot, we may not always predict what type of environment, what type of environment it may have to face from time to time. Okay? So it should not panic at that point of time. Okay, that is that working environment is not known, but that does not mean that it should not stop, it cannot carry out the work, and that can be done only through learning. Then explicit knowledge and encoding may be difficult and not available. Means that even if the working environment is known, that means that if the robot is supposed to work in this hall, it is not possible to just encode all the knowledge, all the information about this hall, okay? Because we may not know that it might change. Okay, so that is also, now the environments change over time, because it is that something that related to two. That means here I told that working environments may not be known at the design time. Okay, and here the environments change over time means that even it is known at the design time, it is not a constant thing. Okay, that it might, that the environment might change over time means that if this chair is placed at this particular position XYZ, it is not sure that it will remain at this XYZ position throughout. So the robots will have to handle that. Okay, and of course the biological systems learn that I told you that we all have to pass through. Okay, so this is the knowledge-based systems. I think I can skip this. Now coming the term, now the machine intelligence, there are two schools of thought, rather. One is artificial intelligence and another is soft computing. Artificial intelligence, okay, that it is the definition of artificial intelligence as given by the MIT. He is considered both as the father and mother of AI or the artificial intelligence. He gives this definition: the science of making machines do things that would require intelligence if done by men. But the most difficult part or the ambiguous part of this definition is what is meant by intelligence. There is no consensus over this. Now AI, it is for two groups of people. One like us, the computer guys or the computer people. Okay, our task is to understand or make the computer more useful. And the other ones is that the psychologist or the biologist, that they study the information processing task within us. So it is also useful for them. Now the AI community, okay, just first let us dwell on the discovery of the aeroplanes. That is the artificial flight, that when at first the intention was to study the bird wings and then make a Xerox copy of that almost into the aeroplane and it will fly. The effort at first was revolved around that, okay, but it was not successful. But the Wright brothers, that they became successful only when they abandoned that idea of studying bird wings and instead started thinking or visualizing the artificial flight in terms of lift, control, power. Okay, so this is that when they thought flight in terms of this, then the aeroplane was born. Now the superiority of birds over aircrafts is that the limitation of aircrafts, it lacks the precision of the birds. It cannot change, that means that it cannot change the direction instantaneously like birds, and it cannot scoop fish from the ocean, which we do not need also. Okay, that is, there are plenty of other ways for scooping fish, but the superiority of aircraft as compared to the birds is the speed and the height at which it can fly. It can fly at a height very high, okay, and then it can fly faster than the sound also. I am talking about the supersonic flight. Now, from this, the AI community, that they came to the conclusion that in order to build up an intelligent machines, we do not want to study human intelligence, human information processing at all. Like their argument was that since here that just as it was impossible to discover the principles of aerodynamics by examining bird wings, so also it is impossible to discover or give rise to machine intelligence or intelligent machines by studying human information processing. Okay, they are saying that then there's the scientific aim of AI research to understand intelligence as computations. And last that, they are saying that hence imitation of human intelligence doesn't make any sense. Here that, so artificial intelligence community, they believe in writing softwares very strong enough as per their version, which will imitate us. Okay, that means, but the main problem with that, as we the soft computing professionals visualize, that intelligence cannot be incorporated by writing softwares, because once it is software driven, then its activity will lie only what is written in that code. Okay. Now here it is written that here the flaws of artificial intelligence, BIC means biologically inspired computing. Okay, biologically inspired computing means the soft computing, you can just tell it is another name. Attempting to program computers to exhibit intelligence without first addressing what intelligence is. That means we are trying to incorporate something within a machine, but we do not understand what does it mean. Is it feasible? We, the soft computing professionals, we do differ because that we think that because what is happening within our brain that we do not know. We, the computer people, we do not know. That is for the medical people to just give us the input. Okay, so based on their input, we will have to move and incorporate the same within the computers. But now here the brains and computers do fundamentally different things as per the recent findings of the brains as from the Harvard Medical School. Okay, that we will come. Okay, I think that how many of you are familiar with those? Human brain? You know. Okay, so can I skip? Okay, so I am just skipping those. These are not now. Okay, now the human brain consists of these are once again these are the findings of our medical colleagues. Okay, not of the computer people. That human brain consists of billions of neurons connected together in a massively parallel way. Okay, and in a massively parallel way, interconnected. Okay, that here the difference between the computer and our brain is that in how do we process information, that is one thing, because our brain is not binary. We don't deal with 0, 1. Okay, and the other things is that also in terms of storage things, there also we do differ from computer. How? That in computer every information that we save is stored at a particular location of the memory. At a particular location of the memory it is stored. But in our brain, our information is distributed throughout in our brain. It means that if there is any disturbance, that if we suffer, if any human beings suffers a massive stroke or something where some neurons got lost, but in spite of that, the information about that is not lost. Okay, but in computer, that once that particular portion gets corrupted, then we lose that information. Okay, so this is the structure of our neuron a very simplified structure of the billions of such things that do exist in our brain. Okay, that here any neuron that it receives input through these things called dendrites. Okay, then that information passes, processing is taking place here, and then it goes to the other neurons through this thing called axons. So our input is coming through dendrites, and then it is through axons. It is going to the other neurons, then it is processing in the same way, and these synapse that will be coming later, that then in this way we are processing, and then ultimately the output we are receiving. Say for example that when we are seeing any particular thing, that the vision of that thing is captured by our eye, it is captured by the retina, and then it goes to our brain. Okay, and it is in the brain that there the processing is taking place, from where we are able to recognize you as you, this DI as DI, and this everything like that. But only thing that we know that in doing that it passes through hundreds and thousands of processes, but the thing is so robust that within a fraction of a second we are getting the output. But that phenomena is not still very clear. Okay, now the neurons can be compared as the transistors in the computers. Okay, now the characteristics of our neurons, that it is very slow as compared to the transistors. Okay, very, very slow, and it just converts into a massively parallel thing, unlike the existing computers. Hence it is a very powerful information processor in spite of being very slow. Okay, then this thing I think I have already mentioned, so this has been said. Now here, that is the two neurons that there, when any signal is sent and when it is just connected to the other neurons, then this is the thing that they come together. It is, and they build what is called the bridge called synapse. It is the synapse between the two neurons, okay, that which transmits the information from one to other, and then the processing does take place. Okay, that is the thing. Okay, that now we are coming to our computer thing, that what we have done, what lessons that we have taken here, that in our brain the neurons, as has been seen, that are organized in layers. Okay, so here also these are the layers. It's a very simplified version, that here it is input layers. These are all input neurons, and these are all output. This particular thing is output layers, and these three are output neurons. Now this is that every information is associated with one weight. What does this weight means? What does this weight signify? Weight signify the importance of that relevant information. Okay, what does that mean is that when we are getting a number of information as input in our brain, all the informations may not be that much important for us. Okay, that means that, say for example, today, that if we are interested in the game of cricket, what is happening in Madras, if we are interested in that, then that input will have a very higher significance to us, and it will have to be given to a very higher weight. On the contrary, if we are not interested at all that cricket, every time that is the thing, then that input will come with a comparatively lower weight. Okay, so there also these are the weights. That means that is the 1 means that this 1 to this 1. So what 1. So from this here 1 to 1 2. That means W12 here. So on and so forth. It is just okay. It is called a single layer feed forward network. Why single? Why single? Because that the input layer is there will always remain, and in addition to that, there is only one layer, the output layer. So it is called single layer, and feed forward means that the information is passing only in the forward direction. Only in the forward direction, that means from here to here, not from here to here. So that is called the single layer feed forward network. Now here it is, if it exceeds more than a single, then it is called multi-layer feed-forward network. Okay, that means here, from here, there have come one more layer in between input and output, and hence it is called multi-layer feed-forward network. Only here the weights from input to these are represented by V, and here from this to this is represented by W. Okay, the rest is all same. And here it is called recurrent network. Recurrent network means that in opposition to the other ones where the information was flowing in only in one direction, that means in the forward direction, here there is one feedback loop. That means that here it is coming, it is flowing, but at the same time, if needed, it is also going back to the previous layers. It is called the recurrent network. Okay, so these are the three. Now, I think that these are the capabilities of the ANN that they do actually. That here it is capability to generalize, means that they can predict. If you give them some past information about something, then they will, about something means that if you say, if you want to buy some shares of one particular company, and if you feed it with the history of the previous, say for example 10 years, that at this period of time, how is it doing, how does it fare, okay? So here it is that they can study those history, and they will predict to you whether investing money in that will be a risky venture or it will be a safe venture. Similarly, if you are suffering from some stomach ailment or something, then if you give your thing, that if you give that network your thing, that your history, medical history for the past 5 or 6 years, then they can generalize and can give you some advice about how to deal with your present ailment. Okay, and then it is fault tolerant, means that they are they can, from incomplete data, they can just give you the output, and the massive parallelism that I told, it is like our brain. Okay. Now, what are the difference between conventional computers and our neural net? That means ANN means artificial neural network. Okay, that is the ANN computers. The thing is that one is conventional computer is software dependent, and neural network is not. Okay, that it obeys the software and it learns by example. Okay, it learns by example. And how does it learn? It learns by, that is every artificial neural network research is focused on learning. Okay, it means that, but how to make it learn? By altering the weights W and V from input to the intermediate layer, and from output to that layer. Okay. Now, the question comes that we are very happy that we are not software dependent. So we are very happy. Now, we just claim that neural networks are modeled after human brain. Okay, yes, it is superior than artificial intelligence. That means that we are superior than, ANN is superior than AI, okay? But here also, the thing that we have implemented up till now, it is a very, very simplified version of the human brain, of the human information processing. Here also that we have not able to implement up till now, okay? That here once again that now comes that what is the challenge of machine intelligence, okay? That what is the challenge of machine intelligence? After saying all those things, now here that our main thing is that how can a brain perform difficult tasks in 100 steps that the most powerful supercomputers cannot do in billions of steps? Okay, that questions we are trying to find the answers. Okay, but recent finding, the answer is based on the recent findings. As I told you, this is not our findings. This is from the Harvard Medical School, that they have found out that our brain does not compute. Our brain retrieves, does not compute to get the answers. It retrieves from memory to get the answers. Okay, now if that is true, now here, what are they saying? Once again, that these 2 or 3 slides are not computer findings. This is of the medical fraternity findings, that the answers were stored in memory long back. Okay, that it is not that much time consuming to retrieve those answers from memory. And our neurons, as I told, that it is very slow as compared to the transistors, but in spite of that, it is the retrieval time is very low. It is not, since we are not computing, so it is very low. And here they have also told that most probably the entire cortex, means the main part of our brain which deals with intelligence, the main part of our brain, the entire cortex is a memory systems and not a computational system. Okay. Now that what happens that in trying to give some more force to their opinion, they have told that how to catch a ball. That when we catch a ball, it is very easy for us that if you throw a ball to me, I will follow it, and within some seconds, just I will snatch the ball out of the air. Okay, that here they are telling that our brain has a stored memory of the muscle command, okay, which is needed to catch a ball, along with many other such things. Now, what happens when a ball is thrown? That here the first thing is that the appropriate memory is just automatically recalled or invoked. Okay, the memory actually recalls a temporal sequence of muscle commands. The retrieved memory is adjusted to accommodate, okay, the particulars of the moments. For example, the ball's actual path. Now the contradiction may come that if it is adjusted, that if the ball, what they are saying is that when the ball is coming to me, when you have thrown the ball to me, that I am just, why this, I am not calculating that y square equal to x square, then x plus, no, minus 5, then I am not moving like this. Yes, it is true. But what is the thing that the retrieved memory is adjusted? So if it is automatically recalled, then what is the meaning of this adjustment? It is not automatic. In support of that theory, they are telling that it is, yes, it is true, the cortex in our brain creates a thing called, okay, that here the cortex takes care of this, which is called invariant representation, which is not in my slide. The name that the term is called invariant representation. Invariant representation automatically adjusts to any new thing which is not commensurate, which is not stored in the memory. Okay, that is their findings. So if this is true, if once again I am telling that if, because up till now we, the neural network community, tried to incorporate intelligence within the machine by thinking, by visualizing our brain as a computer. But now if this finding is true, then by visualizing, then we will have to rethink our strategy, and then we will have to think brain as a memory system. Brain not as a computer, but brain as a storage systems. Okay, so okay, that is to summarize. The memory of how to catch a ball is not programmed into our brain, but these things is still remains that merely by programming, as the artificial intelligence community, as I told you at the very early slides, that they believe in writing source codes. Okay, very large source codes, very large thing, but there is no and they're saying that yes, by incorporating the source code only, and only their support is Wright brothers and aeroplanes. That since birds cannot be, and aeroplanes are not Xerox copies of the bird wings, so our machine intelligence won't be the Xerox copies of human beings. That is their main argument. Okay, now these are the questions that are, okay, I think these are the, now it is my view based on that, in order to get machine intelligence, that we may need to study that in spite of being computer or IT professional, we need to study biological systems. Okay, there is serious, the time is ripe for us to this study, okay, and then it is that how the biological information processing takes place in our brain. I think we need to study. Now we are coming to that. Here, as I told you, that machine intelligence, the route is still unclear. I think you are now clear why is it unclear. Okay, I think we are clear about the unclear path of machine intelligence because of the thing that is, it is not clear through which route is the appropriate route for attaining machine intelligence. So we, the machine intelligence community, so we have to think in both the software of intelligence, that means that whether it is memory or computation, but we also will have, we cannot ignore speed. Because the speed, although the transistors are very high in speed, but still it is seen that the neural network or even the AI programs, it takes very, very long time to give the output. Even if they give, okay, that, so these things that, okay, so now here's, that is, I think this is known to all the audience, that how to increase the, that is, it is the long-term thing, and I think this is not needed also. And this is the Moore's law, that has been that the complexity for minimum component cost has increased at a rate of roughly a factor of 2 per year. Certainly over the short term, this rate can be expected to continue, if not to increase. Over the longer term, the rate of increase is a bit more uncertain. Okay, although there is no reason to believe it will not remain nearly constant for at least 10 more years. It means that by 1975, because it was written in 1965, okay, that means by 1975 the number of components per integrated circuit for minimum cost will be 65,000. I believe that it is the history, and then he just modified the thing. I think that is also known to the audience, that is in mid-1960s, that at first he thought that it was getting doubled, okay, every year. Okay, then in mid-1970s that he modified it to a more accurate estimation of 2 years. Okay, now because we, the machine intelligence community, we need the support of both biologists on one hand and the hardware specialists from the others. Okay, now here, because the biologists can throw more about our information processing task, okay, and the hardware specialists, that we just need to think that from where should we start so as to get the speed necessary to call our machines really intelligent. And there I think that is okay. And now here comes the nanotechnology, the definition. I have heard, I have seen many definitions of that, but the US National Nanotechnology Initiative, they gave this definition of nanotechnology. That means the essence of nanotechnology is the ability to work at the molecular level, atom by atom, to create, okay, large structures with fundamentally new molecular organization. These came in the year 2000 through the US National, okay, Nanotechnology Initiative, which is more popularly known as NNI. Okay, and it is also known, I think. Now, by applying the nanotechnology, that it has got unprecedented power that we know. There is no doubt that even we, the machine intelligence community, we are thrilled to get such great opportunities, but paradoxically that it is also associated with great dangers if abused. Okay, so now why this is the things that, because every material is composed of some atoms, and a slight rearrangement, that if we are able to, a slight shifting and the rearrangement of the atoms can lead to drastically different product. And if somebody can do it unchecked or in some unchecked manner, then what can happen, nobody knows. Okay, so I think that nanotechnology, there is okay, now these are the things that here that we know that by 2019, beyond 2019's, that Moore's law cannot continue in the present form. Okay, but why these are some of the reasons that there is, with the present hardware technology, there is the need to dissipate heat from so many components which the present things lack. And of course this is the fabrication thing which is the prime concern, of course. And with that things, that how to overcome the stress signals that is also one of the things that is need to be given some thought. Now the nanomachines means that here it is simple that it will take, simple to visualize of course, not simple, but it is that simple that it will take some atoms as the input and it will deliver some product as the output. Okay, that here it is, that it means that it deals with atom by atom control things. Okay, and then here it is, it can be visualized as a robotic device. It is sometimes it is called the tiny robots. Okay, it takes raw atoms as inputs and delivers the goods at the output. Okay, and now here it is, this is the thing that you can visualize, that it is the view of the tiny robots as visualized by the thing that it is giving the thing. Okay, you are now, if one such universal assembler or tiny robot is built, then it can self-replicate like our biological systems as they do. Okay, and this will be, and they will make products the cost of which will be extremely low. Okay, that way it is also very useful that for the that is the thing, I think that is the nanotechnology award for that gentleman of the Caltech, which is annually given the thing. And okay, now this is the thing that I will end this nanotechnology thing by citing President Clinton in the year 2000. He gave this at the very place where Feynman gave his famous lecture, "There is plenty of rooms at the bottom." Okay, that he told that at a gathering at Caltech itself, that I will support a major new initiative worth US dollar 500 million. Caltech is no strangers to the idea of nanotech. The ability to manipulate matter at the atomic and molecular level. More than 40 years back, Caltech's own Richard Feynman asked, well, what would happen if we could arrange the atoms one by one the way we want them. Okay, now the thing is that we the machine intelligence community, we are constantly being asked by the other peoples, or in a rather pessimistic way, that you are talking so much about machine intelligence, artificial intelligence, soft computing, and now the nanocomputing, but there is a machine intelligence is nowhere in sight. Okay, but in answer to that, I can tell that, we can tell that, don't be upset. Okay, any exponential thing takes very large time, but once it comes very fast. Okay, that means that here, if we take the history, that it took tens of thousands of years for our ancestral to figure out that sharpening both sides, that it created a useful tool. Okay, that here you can just, if I, now it took 90 years to achieve the first, this thing, and now I think that I don't have much time. So here it is, as order exponentially increases, okay, the time between salient events grows shorter. Okay, the acceleration that when starts, and this is the thing that, so we don't, yes, we are, as I told you, the path is not clear. Path is not clear for the machine intelligence. The destination is machine intelligence, but the path is not clear. But we are advancing albeit at a speed lower than what we had expected, because we are getting the new inputs from both biologists, nanotechnologists, etc., etc. So, and we have to alter our plan accordingly. So let us not feel upset. Okay, I think that the scope of we should not feel over enthusiastic, but at the same time there is not much scope for immense pessimism. With this, I come to an end. I will be happy to just answer your query, if any. Yes, please.
Sir, you had said that the human brain thinks differently from any artificial machine, any machine that is. But you, of course, went quite deeply into what the Harvard Medical School people had said about the human brain's working. Are you suggesting that machine intelligence ultimately will have to adapt or to borrow from the insight of provided by these biologists, or will they have to go their own way, looking at how they can exploit machine?
Very good questions. To answer this question, I can tell that we may not, our intelligent machines, machine intelligence will never be the Xerox copies of our human brain. We need to study our brain, okay, and then we should implement it in our own way. Just as the, Wright brothers, that they abandoned the plan of, making a Xerox copy of the bird wings. It's true. But at the same time, they studied it and then implemented the same thing in terms of the pressured airflow, etc., etc. So we need to study, we need to get the inputs about really whether our brain is a computational system or whether it is a storage system. And then in our own way, we should implement it. As per my version,